Here on FTD Facts, we've gone into great detail to learn as much as we can about the Netherlands, and have dived far into understanding not just the country itself, but even looking at the Netherlands and its military forces. And although the Netherlands remains quite a peaceful country, it is still one nation that takes its defense very seriously. And here on FTD Facts, we continue our series on the Netherlands by looking at the brave soldiers and the daring pilots and amazing crew of the entire organization of what is known as the Royal Netherlands Air Force. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to FTD Facts, the channel where we talk about people, cultures, and places, and yeah, even militaries from all around the world. Now, today here, we are, like I said, going to look at the Air Force of the Netherlands, because in our previous videos, we've talked a lot about the Netherlands. We've done videos on the country itself, and we've looked at the Special Forces, we've looked at the Marine Corps, and just the military as a whole. And by the way, guys, if you guys are interested in any of that sort of stuff, I'm going to put some cards throughout this video and some stuff down there in the description box and at the end of this video for you guys to check out. Also, actually, before we get into the video, if you guys really like this content and you guys want us to continue to talk about the Netherlands Air Force, or you want us to talk more about more of the Netherlands or the Netherlands military, well, hit that like button, because if we get over 5,000 likes, we'll continue this sort of stuff. Cool? But either way, guys, let's get looking at the Air Force of the Netherlands. Now, the main task of the Netherlands Air Force, according to their own website, is that the Royal Netherlands Air Force is a modern high-tech armed forces, and it is a service that is active on a global basis. Now, as for the Air Force, it lends support in combating international unrest and provides in disaster relief. And at home in the Netherlands, the Air Force ensures security from the air, and for these purposes, it has highly qualified personnel, aircraft, helicopters, and other weapon systems at their disposal. Now, of course, within the Netherlands Air Force, they all work under the international laws within war and peacetime. And like I said, the Netherlands Air Force is really big on providing disaster relief. As a matter of fact, they have bases or temporary setups in about 6 different countries around the world, at least. But who are the people within the Air Force of the Netherlands? Well, for its size, they say there's approximately about 8,000 people currently within the Royal Netherlands Air Force. Now, of course, that doesn't mean everybody's a pilot. As a matter of fact, they got crew, they've got logistics people working for it, and as a matter of fact, they say they have approximately 175 craft that is ready to go. But one of the coolest things about the Royal Air Force is its history, and of course, if we're talking about facts of the Air Force, well, we gotta look at history, because those things are important as well. Because for this particular group, it was on July 1st, 1913, that the Dutch Army had founded what is known as the Army Aviation Group, known as the LVA. Now, at that time, the LVA had an airfield at Soesterberg. Now, because of this, this has made the Air Force of the Netherlands the second youngest group within all of the Royal Netherlands Army. Now, as it originally started, they only had approximately 4 pilots, and between them they shared one little small plane until the arrival of the French HF.20. Now, what I found really fascinating about these 4 pilots is that they actually got their pilot's license on their own. They spent their own time, their own money into getting the licenses. They weren't provided by the government. And during this time, one of the most important pilots within the Army Aviation Group was Willem Versteeg, who was the first Dutch soldier to ever have a pilot's license, and he also made the first flight for the Royal Netherlands Air Force in an aircraft which is known as the Van Meel Bricken, which was a Farman-type plane that are originally produced in France, in which for the Van Meel Bricken aircraft, they only had 3 of them, and 2 of them were used as trainers. I also want to point out that the Van Meel Bricken plane was built by Marnius van Meel, who was one of the earliest, if not the first, real aviation manufacturer and builder of the Netherlands. And although the Farman-type aircraft was of French design, the original Van Meel Bricken planes for the Royal Dutch Air Force, or the Army Aviation Group at the time, were modified Farman-type planes that were built by the Dutch and for the Dutch. However, by the time World War I came around, the Dutch forces of the Netherlands remained very neutral. It's because during that time, they were focused more on their own soldiers. They were doing a lot of training around that time. And because they chose to focus more on training, there was more specialized training in aviation that became available in things such as photography. As well, there were also new bases opening up for the Air Force of the Netherlands, and it seemed like it was going to be a really growing thing for the Netherlands. But unfortunately, it was after World War I that the budget for what is known as the Army Aviation Group was majorly cut. And of course, there were a lot of different reasons of why, but one of the biggest reasons is that countries within Europe were focusing on the League of Nations, which was basically like the UN after World War II, an organization that promoted world peace. However, this was all to change because by the time of the 1930s, tensions in Europe began to heighten. And with war right around the corner, the politicians of the Netherlands attempted to rebuild the Air Force, in which they renamed the Army Aviation Group to the Army Aviation Brigade in 1939. And with war that was definitely coming to Europe, the Dutch had built as many planes as they could, but due to political issues and budget issues, by the end of 1939, they had only 176 combat planes, in which many of these planes were produced by the Dutch manufacturer named Fokker. And of course, I'm going to talk about Fokker just a little bit, although it's not actually part of the Air Force, it is related to it very heavily, especially during this time. And one thing that I found really fascinating for me, and I didn't even know this, and a lot of people from around the world may not know this as well, is that Fokker, although really heavily related to the German military in World War I, they were actually Dutch. Yeah. This is because the founder, Anthony Fokker, actually comes from a Dutch background, being born in what was once Blitar, which is now Jakarta, Indonesia. And of course, for Anthony and his company, they built a lot of planes that the Germans used during the First World War. However, at the end of the war, because of the Treaty of Versailles, it forbid Germany from making any aircraft. So because of that, he took his company and moved it all the way back to the Netherlands. But even with the 176 combat planes produced by Fokker and other companies as well, they could not stop the inevitable forces of the German army. It was in the early hours of May 10th, 1940 that Germany had invaded the Netherlands and began occupying the region. And the German army just had a superior force. They came right in and they completely wiped out the Army Aviation Brigade within 5 days. And unfortunately for this, every single Netherlands pilot was lost during the battle. But it should be noted that although the Germans did attack, the Germans lost a lot more planes. Apparently they lost over 300 of them. So the Netherlands did put up quite a good fight. And keep in mind, for some of the air crews and pilots of the Netherlands, they did manage to escape and flew to North America and England and began flying again, and trained even more. And because of their major loss during the invasion, Queen Wilhelmina awarded the Air Brigade the highest commendation that one can be given in the Netherlands, and that is the Militair Willem Sword. Now, of course, during this time, all the forces that were within the Indies had fled to places like Australia when the Japanese invaded. And during the war, pilots and crews from the Dutch made squadrons like 320 Squadron, which worked heavily with the RAF. As well, there is the popular 322 Squadron, which still exists today. Of course, there was the 321, but that got absorbed into the 320 Squadron. And let's also mention the Dutch and Australian Squadron known as 18 or 120 NEI. And although during this time the Dutch didn't really have a major home because it had been occupied by the Germans, the Air Force of the Netherlands did have pilots training in an established flying school in Jackson, Mississippi. So we talk a lot about all this Army Brigade, but how did the Royal Netherlands Air Force name become its thing? Well, this happened on March 27, 1953, when the remaining air brigades of the Netherlands were reformed into what is currently known as the Royal Netherlands Air Force. It's also interesting to know that a lot of the equipment that was being used at this time for the Dutch was actually donated by the RAF. As a matter of fact, they flew Spitfires until about 1954. And of course, you may be wondering about how the Dutch transferred into jets. Well, as for the Royal Netherlands Air Force, they received the 38 Meteor F4s in 1948. But the question is, what is the first fighter that was built by the Dutch and for the Dutch? That would be the Fokker S-14 Mock Trainer, in which 21 were originally built, and although they had their first flight on May 19, 1951, they were introduced into full service by 1955. And it's during this time that the Air Force saw service in New Guinea, as the area was a major disputed territory between Dutch and Indonesia. So let's fast forward a little bit, let's brush through some of the more recent history. Although a little older, during the Cold War, the Netherlands was operating defense of West Germany. Of Of course, it had many bases and squadrons that were also a part of NATO, working with the USAF. And since then, its pilots and crews have seen action in Yugoslavia. As well, they were in Kyrgyzstan at the Manas Air Base with the Norwegians and the Danish, in which they provided support in Afghanistan. They've also been in places like Mali, Jordan, and they created their first joint strike fighter unit with the US in November of 2014. Of course, they've also been in operations within Iraq and Syria. But through the sands of time, many squadrons have moved around and many military bases have been shut down. And currently, there is approximately 9 Air Force bases within the Netherlands. 2 of them are main bases for their current main fighter, which is the F-16, and those bases are Leeuwarden and Volkel, in which they are home to the 3 main fighter squadrons known as the 313, the 312, and the famous 322. For helicopters, they have 2 main bases, in which their main attack helicopter is the Apache AH-64D. But as for equipment, let's take a quick look at what kind of stuff these guys use. Currently, the Royal Netherlands Air Force uses the F-16 as its main fighter, with approximately 61 fighters ready to go. However, the one thing is these F-16 fighters are set to be retired very shortly and replaced by the new F-35. In total, they have approximately 37 of these new fighters to be coming into the main service. They also have currently 8 trainer versions of the F-16, and as for Apaches, they have about 28 of them. And also for the Air Force, it's doing something rather new. It's working with civilian companies to create its very first satellite, which is set to be released in 2019, I think. So there you have it. That is just a look at the great and amazing people and the forces of the Netherlands Air Force. What do you think of these guys, and would you fly for them? Let us know your thoughts down there in the comments section below. As always, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Dave Walpa, and by the way, if you guys like these videos and you want to learn more about the military, or you just want to learn more about the Netherlands, guys, I'm going to have some videos at the end of this. There's also some in the description box below. And of course, if it's your first time here, guys, hit that subscribe button, because we love learning about new places all around the world, and we love learning with you guys. So with that in mind, you guys got to leave comments down there in the section, or comment section below, so we know kind of the stuff that you guys want us to talk about in the future. But either way, this has been you and me learning about the Royal Netherlands Air Force, an amazing group with a deep and rooted history, an organization that stands up to defend its culture, its country's identity, and most importantly, the many amazing people within it. This is the Royal Netherlands Air Force. They may be small in numbers, but great in deeds. So guys, if you really like this video, got some serious recommendations for you guys to check out. Click some of these videos because you guys will really love learning about this stuff. You'll just feel a lot smarter and you feel like you actually did something today. It's great. Trust me. Anyways, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you guys in the next one. Okay? Bye-bye.